Hello everyone, with fall here and winter coming soon, I was hoping that we could get some horror content in, and that's why I'm going to be sharing with you all some scary stories from this horror book that I picked up from the library. Now, to start off, and tomorrow I'm thinking about making some scary stories of my own, seeing which ones you all like better, my scary stories or the scary stories we find in books. Before I start the story, let me read this little passage they had next to the story. Hollywood's favorite type of spirit is one with a mission, and what better mission is there than revenge? Though they are not driven by the ever elusive movie deal, elusive movie deal, many ghosts do seem to stay on this earth for the purpose of punishing those who have done them wrong. It may be one reason why the act of murder so often results in a haunting. Revenge, it is said, is a dish best served cold, and there is nothing colder than a phantom's touch. Uh, and that's what this chapter, where we're getting this story from, is all about. Spirits' revenges. And here we go with the first story. Spirits from the slaughter. You may be an undigested bit of beef. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are. That's Charles Dickens from A Christmas Carol. When Ebenezer Scrooge uttered these delightfully unforgettable lines, he was blaming ordinary indigestion for the apparition haunting him at the moment. But here's another thought. Could a bit of beef, digested or not, come back to haunt you in its own right? Most people think of meat as tidily cut portions neatly encased in plastic wrap, which originate in the groceries aisle cooler. But the animals from which those portions come from were once alive. If animals have a spiritual innocence, then, and many believe that they do, could they not return as ghosts, unhappy about their fate? At least three examples from Chicago suggest they can. Thurston's, a bar on West George Street, was once a slaughterhouse. The night spot was plagued by spirits of butchered animals until recently, after a priest was asked to bless the premises. In the 1950s, a butcher named Jesse Rowe quit his job in a Chicago slaughterhouse because of a spectral sheep that would charge at him across the parking lot and then vanish into thin air. Do dumb animals have spirits and souls? He was quoted asking asking, can they come back from the dead to haunt you? At least one of Rowe's fellow workers believed so. A man named Frank also chose to give up his paycheck rather than risk further encounters with the vengeful Iwu. But it was another Chicago butcher, Gordon Yates, who was related to the most disconcert- disconcerting of these three stories. In the spring of 1953, he worked in a butcher shop and had a haunted walk-in refrigerator. Yates had been employed by the shop for only a few weeks when he first experienced the unusual phenomenon. He had just butchered and trimmed a side of beef and carried it into the refrigerator, where it was hung on a hook. He walked out and closed the door, and returned to the cutting block. And that was when he first heard the strange, low sounds of emanating from the large cooler. He stopped working and listened carefully, and what he heard made his blood run cold. Yachts knew the various stages of meat production. The sounds were unmistakably the cries of the cows, fearfully awaiting slaughter. He pulled upon the refrigerator door, and half expecting to see a fellow employee playing a prank on him, and the noise immediately stopped. When the door was closed once more, the eerie lowing continued. Yachts was understandably mystified, and called several fellow employees over to listen with him. Once a group assembled, the refrigerator stood silent, leaving Yachts feeling foolish, and all the more perplexed. When the other butchers returned to their work, one lingered long enough to offer Gordon Yachts a warning. "I wouldn't work on this station for double my salary," he was quoted as saying. "Funny things have been going on here for years." When Yachts pressed the man for details, he learned that the last meat cutter to work at the station had left because he claimed that the walk-in refrigerator was haunted. Haunted! Even after what he had just experienced, Gordon Yachts was incredulous. The other man was insistent. Man, these words. A few years ago, a butcher who worked this block was found dead in the box. It turned out that the door closed after him, and somehow he was trapped. No one noticed he hadn't punched out. When everyone knocked out for work for the day, the next morning they found him. Sometimes that inside door handle doesn't work. If I were you, I'd be careful with it. The eerie tale replayed itself in Gordon Yacht's mind until quitting time, but thankfully he heard no more mournful animal sounds from the cooler. Early the following morning, Yachts was about to carry a side of beef into the refrigerator when the phenomenon began again. The distinct sound of moaning cattle began to seep from within the cooler. Desperate to make them stop, Yachts yanked open the cooler. Yachts yanked open the heavy door. This time, the sound did not cease. They grew louder as the nervous man walked into the refrigerator to hang the beef. He was surrounded by playful animal cries, intertangled in them. Then he turned around and realized that he truly was about to be trapped. The massive insulted door of the refrigerator had begun to swing shut. Gordon Yachts remembered his co-worker's warning about how the inside handle didn't always work, and made a desperate lunge for it. He managed to grab the lever just before it fell and pushed at the door, but seemed to resist him. Yachts had to brace his entire weight against the door, which had always swung freely before. Still, he managed to open it just enough to squeeze out of the cooler. Once out, Gordon Yachts realized that he could have never walked back into that refrigerator again. He removed his apron and promptly resigned. If Yachts questioned the sanity of his decision, he did not do so for long. Only a few days later he learned that the butcher who had taken his job was found dead in the haunted refrigerator. Investigators tested the inside handle and found it in good working order, so the death remained a mystery. 1 year later, the walk-in cooler claimed a third victim. Faced with the potential walkout of their entire staff, the owners of the butcher shop finally had the unit rebuilt and the door replaced. Although no mechanical problem was ever found, the death toll ended there. But the stories remained, and no employee ever wanted to work at that particular station again. And that was the story of the spirits from the slaughter. The story really does make you think, though. Like, why can't there be animal ghosts? And if there is animal ghost, why can't they have a revenge attitude about them? You know, if you're a butcher, and if you hear stories about your walk-in refrigerator being haunted, please be careful with the door handle or the door itself. You don't want to become locked in there in an icicle. Hope you all enjoyed that story. Me? it wasn't that scary for me. It was a good one. I mean, yeah, if I had to experience it for myself, I would be afraid of walking at refrigerators after that. That's for sure. But I never experienced that, so I couldn't say.